Welcome to 13 Minutes of Gig News. 13 minutes or less. This week, the question is, can Uber ever become profitable? Uber launched in 2009. For many years, it went on, not publicly traded company. It was going global still. And then it IPO'd on the Dow. We saw its value tank, and it really has had trouble climbing back up. And that's what we're really going to get into, because some of you are thinking, of course it can be profitable, or it has been profitable. Well, let's dissect that, because I can count on one single hand the amount of quarters since 2009, but let's go since the IPO, since then, just even 6 years ago, I can count on one single hand the profitable quarters they've had. 4 quarters in a year, you do the math. But are those quarters even profitable? Are they profitable from the services that Uber provides? Rideshare, Uber Eats, when they bought Corner Shop and added that into Eats for grocery delivery. Can Uber be profitable on those services? They have never to this date. So if you're saying, well, you just said they had 5 or whatever can fit on one hand profitable quarters, right? Well, let's look into that. So, in every one of the profitable quarters, they sold off a piece of their technology. Now, you see me with the air quotes saying technology. You know why I'm saying that? Because Uber is not a technology company unless they're under scrutiny that demands them to say that. They know as well as everybody else, because they also go the other way. We're not a tech company. They are easily to say that because in all reality, the truth is they are not a tech company. They have acquired some tech companies and then resold them off. And that is what has led to the profitable quarters. We had vertical takeoff and landing, which is also known as VTOL, autonomous, the courier project, which is Uber, Connect. That has been a failure. This is the 6th or 7th time it's launched. We know that it's highly dangerous. Uber Teen is a joke. That's illegal. And other failed Uber projects have always been a PR distraction from the reality that Uber just isn't profitable. They're in with many news outlets and other things that can't report too badly on them. But even as many of us have heard the saying, any news is good news, or any PR is good PR. That's not always the case, but actually in Uber's case it is, because it gets their name out there every time. Even a little something happens, they either don't comment or they put a little spin on it. So in the quarters where they have made profits, they've sold off VTOL, which is a joke. Never was going to happen for 100 years. Autonomous, not even close yet. We'll get into, there's a lot to that. And then they're basically just a taxi company. They're a dispatch company. The company withholds information from its investors. And the investors are now demanding more details. And this number of investors is growing very quickly who want more details. And I'm going to give you an example of, the example that we're going to use today is true autonomous, full autonomous. I have talked to insurance agents on what it would require for that to happen. I have talked with engineers from autonomous companies who have told me that we're 20, 30, 40, 50 years out from a true full autonomous. The insurance agents say it either has to be all autonomous or no autonomous before this can really happen. The other side is that they're using things like Waymo or Pony or, because of their relationship with Alphabet and Google, they're jumping on board and they're providing the dispatch to these autonomous vehicles, which are not working in a functional order. So now investors want to know, since the needle has been moved from 2020 to 2021 to 2022 to 2023, 4 or 5, it kept moving every year to when full autonomous would be here. Full self-driving, no drivers needed. And that's what investors have been placing their money in since the beginning. Now, when Travis Kalanick was in charge for the first 6 years of Uber, they actually had an autonomous division. And had it continued, they might still be up there with Waymo and some of the other companies. But now they just bring the other companies onto the platform. And those other companies are just getting more light shined on them at this time because they're advancing a little quicker. But they're nowhere near a regulation that would allow them to operate across the nation. And I'll give you an example. So they're in Austin, they're in LA, they're in San Francisco, they're in Phoenix, and they're going to be in Atlanta, and they're going to Miami. Do you see? I think a lot of people are under the impression that this means that, well, those vehicles work. Look how quickly they're moving across the country. That's not what it means. It means that the local city government or the state government took huge amounts of money from Uber to allow them to live test in their cities. And yes, I just said that. So Uber, if you're watching, I know that you must hate 13 minutes of gig news. Same with DoorDash and all the other big ones because we expose. So here's the exposure. We know that bags of money are the only things that have you in there. Even Waymo. Waymo has documentation out that their LiDAR works at a 70% efficiency. How is that road ready? It doesn't work well in the light or in the dark. It has issues with people of color and women. It doesn't see like balls bounce. It misses so much. And yet they're in so many cities because the government takes a bunch of money from Uber to allow it. So this testing and Uber giving up the division of their own has really led to one simple fact. They're just a dispatch company. So if I'm an investor or you're an investor, we're talking to other investors, wouldn't the question very naturally, especially by now, come up? Because the news is pretty out there that autonomous is coming along, but it's not real. And now that the investors know that, they want a bigger breakdown on the quarterly earnings reports that Uber puts out. Because they'll see, here's the earnings, here's this, they'll see all the parts they need normally to be an investor in something. But then they see, here's what we paid the drivers. Now, because autonomous is not real and it's not in the crosshairs for any coming year for Uber, the investors are growing number of them are saying, we want a lot more details on those drivers. How many drivers are in each city? How many hours are they putting in? And the big question, can they earn a living wage? Because if they can't, every person invested in Uber wants their money out. Because let's give it the benefit of the doubt. Let's say full autonomous is coming in 10 years. Nobody wants their money in this stock that doesn't even have autonomous anymore. They put it on the platform in some cities, but doesn't even have it anymore. And 10 years is like the best scenario. And I don't even think that I've heard that from any engineer in the field. 20 is like kind of like maybe some cities, but regardless, true full autonomous is not coming. The investors realize it. So what's the next logical step? Can the drivers make a living wage on the platform? They want to know those hours. They want to know how many drivers. They want to know how many are part-time, full-time. They want to know all the details they need to know, can these drivers make enough money to be working on Uber and make a living? Because if they can't, I want my money and I'm leaving because this will never make a dime. So now we get into the fact that they've been selling off all these other technologies that aren't even theirs, but they acquire them. Like, let's take Aurora. Aurora was when they sold, they bought it and they sold it. That was an autonomous company. So they did own it for a minute, but they're not a tech company, so they just resold it. But where is all the money coming from? Because it's not coming from the rides. It's not coming from Uber Eats. It's all of these companies are having issues, big ones. And Uber, by the way, I know I have it down here. Uber is considered by most the worst technology company performance-wise since its launch as an IPO. The worst one of all. But where's all the money coming from? Subsidies. So for years, you've seen programs where we take elderly people to the hospital, Uber and rideshare drivers, or we take people to voting, or we sell, like here in Denver, We sell, you can buy your train ticket through the Uber app. You can buy a bus ticket through the Uber app. We all knew that this wasn't where they're going to make their money, but it is, because this is how and where they're getting government subsidies and state subsidies. Well, we'll sell the tickets for you on our app. And some states wake up and go, dude, this is doing nothing for us. You're just a joke. But many keep throwing into this amount. So they overpay on everything. Anything medical should tell you that's overpayment. Elderly, people take advantage of that all the time. I mean, they're great services, but the fact that it's used to make their profit and lie to the public and get PR stunts is pathetic. And I'm glad the investors are waking up, because subsidies is the elephant in the room. And I'm going to give you one example here as we roll out of this. This is a recent one sent to me by a friend in California. Shout out to Xander, who lives in Riverside County. So if you're familiar, Riverside County is part of the outskirts of Los Angeles, and it has a prison in Riverside County. Approximately 75% of the people who leave Riverside County, so these are inmates who are being released, approximately 75% leave by family or friend or bus route, okay? So 3/4 of the people who are let out of jail have a family or friend that pick them up on the day they're released, or they take one of the bus routes. There's been an issue in Riverside where the residents haven't been real good with the other 25% who just walk out of there and then stay in Riverside County. So the solution is, well, let's have Uber drivers take them. First of all, you're putting Uber drivers in a very bad position. Not saying all inmates haven't reformed or whatever, but they don't know that they're going there until they know. And some Uber drivers are under the thinking that they have to take that ride. Well, here's the thing. We're going to use Riverside here for the last example. So $2.1 million was given to Riverside Prison this year to give people rides from jail to where they're going with a maximum amount. I'm not sure how much it is, but $2.1 million for the year for the other 25% who don't have rides out of there. Do you understand that? Here's my guess. If every ride was $1,000 for all of the people released, the 25%, maybe what? You'd get 200,000, 250 out of it, or 210,000. So approximately 10% at best of the money being given to Uber is not being used. It's being kept, but it's being given to Uber and they don't have to provide the rides. And that's 13 minutes of gig news in just under 13 minutes. Peace, y'all.